they eat like the gummy bear stuff. And so it'll be right.
It makes me want a cookie.
I'm like, yeah, good.
Caramel. All right, time being 10:30, and the previous meeting got done on time. In fact, it was early, so thank you, Madam Bates. I'd like to call the Jobs Committee meeting of Friday, November 15th to order. Call the roll, please.
Bates. Doherty.
Here.
Strathman.
Here.
Young. Lewis.
Lewis here.
And Allen is on her way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Salon's running late, but we'll start without her. Mr. Doherty is online. Could we have requests to allow him in? Make it so. All right. Good morning, Gary.
Morning, y'all.
Happy Friday.
Right on.
All right. And then we need approval of the minutes from September 26th and October 11th. Thank you. No objections? It's approved. No public comments. So if it's okay with the board, I would like to change the order, and we will let Scott's group go first. And then instead of new business and the comments by the co-chairs, we've got a presentation this morning. Thank you. Is that okay with you, young man? Yes. Compared to me, you are. Everybody is.
David, what's your name? Young.
Young man. Wow.
God,
Very good. I know. Okay. Good job.
you get to be a young man forever.
Madam
Hey,
Chair,
Scott, are you online?
Madam Chair, Doherty.
Oh, he left us. Okay.
Doherty,
Hey, Gary.
could you just request everybody use their microphones? A lot of people not coming through.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, I wasn't on.
Okay, everybody's on. It looks like Scott has dropped off for a minute, so let's go ahead with our presentation. That's you four. Come up to the it's four. So we have this morning some guests from the Northern Kane County Region 110. We have Terry Stroh. We have Alignment Collaboration for Education Executive Director Nancy Coleman, Valley Education for Employment Systems, which we just call Valleys, Director Cassie Bickham, and the Northern Illinois County Vocational Region 110 Work-Based Learning Specialist Todd Stern, who, by the way, his family is Stern, Marina, and Aurora, just so you know. So you go ahead and start. I asked them here because I have met them several times, and there's some really amazing things going on with getting our high school students ready to join the workforce up in the Elgin area. And so I wanted them to come and share with the cool things going on up there.
Well, thank you very much for having us this morning. We appreciate it. There we go. So the four of us that are here this morning represent a lot of the work-based
You have
learning.
to talk very
Sorry.
close to.
There you go. I'm usually pretty loud, so I'm not used to having to use a microphone a whole lot. So we just want to go through a couple of things with you this morning about work-based learning and how we have our career tech ed courses leading into that. To go ahead and start things off, though, I'm going to let Nancy Coleman come up and speak about Alignment Collaborative and what Alignment is and what Alignment does. And then when she's done, we'll talk a little bit, Cassie and myself will talk about what the EFE directors or the Valleys and Northern Kane directors do with all of that. So bring Nancy Coleman up.
Be sure I don't mess this up. Well, it is a pleasure to be with you today. I guess it's been 2 or 3 months ago, I got to meet Anita and Cheryl for lunch. I always am anxious to tell the story of Alignment because it is a nonprofit organization that the Elgin business community put together. So it is unusual. It's not the norm. And what I would like to show you today is how well organizations like that can be integrated into your regional CTE work. And it really brings in your business community and gets a lot of commitment from them and resources from them. So what our vision is that we invest in youth to ensure the future strength of the community and its workforce. What is unique about Alignment is it is definitely future workforce. We focus totally on middle and high school students and transitioning them either to work, to post-secondary education, or to some type of apprenticeship training program. We basically send students to university, but we are seeing smaller and smaller percentages of that. Many of the students are going to ECC, but many of them just want to go to work in the Elgin area. So a lot of it depends on the demographics and the high schools you serve. Alignment serves 9 high schools. We serve U46. That's where we started. And we primarily do a lot of our work there just because of the size of U46. But we have recently also brought under the umbrella District 300 and 301. And the reason why Elgin is so interested in this and the hub of all of that, that is where most of the jobs are for those students.
Will you tell us what towns are included in those districts?
Yes, yes.
Thank
You've
you.
got Burlington in 301, and then you've got Carpentersville, Dundee. So you've got Dundee Crown High School, you've got Jacobs High School, you've got Hampshire in 300. Under U46, you've got Bartlett, you've got Streamwood, you've got Larkin, Elgin, and South Elgin, which are all in that area. And then you have Burlington Central. Former superintendent here with us today, Todd Stern from that area. But most of the students that are in 301 are actually residents of Elgin. So if you look at why we're doing it, a little bit different. We have been for years having groups focused just on manufacturing. All of you know it's GCamp and they do amazing work, but it's very focused on just one sector. Alignment is very different. We focus on all the sectors and we focus most heavily on the sectors that have the largest job growth projected over the next decade. And we just pretty much tell people up front, they got to graduate academic ready and we got to continue to help the schools to get them there. But the piece the schools don't have is this career ready piece. And so we as a business community must help with being sure that that career ready piece is there. And so again, that gives you where we're centered and what we're working on. But again, we're graduating over 5,000 seniors a year in the system. And my concern was when I came 7 years ago is that many of those seniors had no idea what they wanted to do. And they were staying in the Elgin area and not going any further with training beyond high school. So if you do that for a decade, it's amazing how it can deteriorate a workforce. So you've got to be sure that those pathways are visible with those students and you're having those conversations as early as their freshman year. So just to give you an idea of our footprint, we could not do this without working hand in hand. We are totally integrated with Northern Kane County Region 110. We served 10,000 students last year, a little over that. It's an 18% increase. 3 years ago, guys, we were like 3,500. So the growth rate has been ridiculous. COVID, I thought might cripple us, and it didn't. We went quickly to virtual training and held together for 2 years and then came back strong. Just to give you an idea, we have over 200 business partners. Last year we logged, which was as of June 30th, we're only July 1 to June 30th fiscal year, we logged 10,212 volunteer hours. This is a big sell back to the community. That's why Mayor Captain, when he has his city address in just a few weeks, he always talks about alignment. It's a nice sell. We returned 662,000, and that is an underestimate. We put wages low on that. So the return on investment, it's easy to sell business involvement because they see these numbers. Just to give you an idea, though, it's not all about numbers. Some of it's about comprehensive strategic programs that take juniors and seniors who we're worried about in that transition and getting them into programs that make a difference that are tied to their career interest. Terry's going to talk about this more, but last year we had 146 students in paid internships. When I arrived 7 years ago, nobody was doing paid internships in high schools. I couldn't get them to do it. They're like, well, no, we can't pay. And I'm like, why not? Because the problem is if you don't pay, if you look at the demographics of Elgin, it's a little bit different here. If you look at the demographics of Elgin, these students cannot afford not to work in the summertime. They are helping support their families. So you have to be sure that it is not only in their career area, but you've got money behind it, because if their choice is Jules or taking an unpaid internship, they're going to be at Jules. And there's nothing wrong with being at Jules. There's a lot to be learned there. But I'm just saying, if you're trying to match their career interest and get them to go beyond high school into a lucrative trade where they can support their family, you got to start that message in high school. We also have been very fortunate. We've had a 34% increase in revenue last year. That's been happening every time. We have a strong base of support. Advocate Sherman Hospital, Hoffer Plastics, Harding, Elgin's loaded with industry. And we have been able to take advantage of getting those partners on board. I can't take credit for any of that. This was a vision of Mayor Captains and Linda Deering Dean with Advocate Sherman Hospital 10 years ago. Cherie Murphy, some of you may remember her. She was amazing. She was our biggest cheerleader. So again, it was something that Elgin wanted, and they went after it. They copied it after the Rockford model. It's interesting, the Rockford model has not survived the career development piece. They have changed direction and are only focusing on early education. So it's interesting how, depending on what the priorities are of the area, how these organizations can change to support those priorities. And then again, our funding, some of our funding comes from the school district, but not the majority. I actually like that. I like that 66% of our funding comes from the business community. I also like that I don't work for the school districts, because then I can have that frank conversation when I have to, that they're not getting the job done. You can't do that if you're employed by the school district. So it's a very different message sometimes, that we got to get our math skills up, because we can't have anybody even working in a machine technology role or in any type of CNC programming role if they don't have the math skills. So what are we doing to partner with school districts? We're starting, and Anita and Cheryl both got to come the night before on this event. We start, and the only reason we start this late is because I don't have enough resources to start earlier. We start with 8th grade students. So we bring every 8th grade middle school student in U46 to the Now Arena, and we basically focus on 12 industry clusters. They choose ahead of time like clusters that they would like to see, and they spend the day with us at the Now Arena. There are 2,400 of them. So it's a very interesting, I tell everybody it's more of a PR, like get everybody excited. But what is so important about it, in U46, they have a career pathways model, and each one of their high schools have academies. So unfortunately, and I know for many of you who have had students that have already graduated from high school and moved on, you're having to make decisions in the 8th grade about what areas your student wants to apply for, which academies. Do they want to be in STEM? Do they want to be in performing arts? Do they want to be in LEAD in an incubator program? So all of those decisions are having to be made in about January of the 8th grade year to line those students up for what they're interested in. And also our CTE programs, they're not, every one of them's not in every high school.
Oh, what's
So-
that?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's career and technical education programs. And Terry's going to tell you a ton about that. They're not all in one place. So again, we have to be sure that we are working with parents. And that has been our big, I will tell you, that is where we are still struggling. We are struggling with parent engagement after COVID. So again, we are the link to the school districts and bringing in those business partners and designing this work-based learning programming to actually meet those different career interests. And what's hard about it, if we only had to do manufacturing, I spent 8 years of my life in the aerospace industry, manufacturing, it'd be really easy. But we have to do manufacturing, we have to do healthcare, we have to do business, we have to do financial services, we have to do culinary. So again, it requires you to almost be a jack of all trades. And then the most important thing, this is what I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to Terry, because I want y'all to they have made amazing progress as a region with their career technical education numbers. But this is a partnership we greatly value, okay? This is where our resources are. I spent years in the technical college system in Georgia and South Carolina. your backbone of your technical education is in your Carl Perkins funding and how you utilize that funding. And Northern Kane County has done an amazing job in utilizing that funding to be sure that those CTE programs and all of those
Great.
districts are
Okay.
strong.
Oh, what's that funding? Carl Perkins?
Carl Perkins. Yes, that's where most of your technical training funding comes from.
Thank you.
So we have worked very hard to share best practices. Terry and I pretty much designed this internship program, expanded it. I started it a couple years before that with Village of Bartlett and some of the municipalities, but we have expanded it together to be sure that all those CTE students have amazing opportunities to get hands-on work. And then we're utilizing state and federal dollars in addition to all of the private dollars that are being invested in alignment. So I'm going to turn it over to you now for you to see the progress that has been made. And I would like to say that some of that was because of alignment, or a little bit of that was because of alignment, but I think you'll be real pleased to see those numbers. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry, Cassie, and Todd.
Hey, Nancy, before you sit down, can I ask if any of our board members have questions for you?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. What are you doing with green jobs?
Good jobs. Interesting enough, we are leaving it up to the industries, and we have several that are cutting it. Belgian Sweeper has put a significant investment that have the green technology. Also have electrical services. And another example of that is Hopper and all of their process and their injection molding systems. So we've got 3 companies that are heavily looking at that. That's not everybody though. We've got a lot more than that. We're also seeing some of it being applied, some of the advocacy board is interesting. Hospitals doing work when it comes to that.
So that's just embedded in the businesses themselves. Mhm.
And I
Um,
can leave my card too, because I don't want to take it.
I just have one comment that you don't have to answer it, but when Cheryl and I went to the evening at the Now Center, I was actually impressed at the parent engagement. The parents and the students were allowed to go down, and they had all these companies there. And because they have to make these choices at 8th grade, there was a lot of parents and a lot of students, and they were very engaged with going to these various things because they were interested in what kind of jobs their students were going to get. So I was actually very impressed.
But yes, it is significantly getting better.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's a reason why I don't like to talk after Nancy, but
Yes,
she does a great job at representing what we do. I'll bring up my counterpart. Oh, there, Cassie. So give you a little bit of history here, a little bit of an idea of what we do as EFE directors, or Education for Employment directors. Not a lot of people understand what that is, but we are liaisons between the State Board of Education and our school districts. We work to manage all of their state grant funding and all of their Perkins grant funding. So Perkins is federal dollars, and we have CTEI, which is state grant dollars. So we are working with our school districts on all of their curriculum and where they're spending those dollars, and how do we maximize the effect that those dollars have. Another part of our job is to be a liaison between the school districts then and our business and our communities. So how do we get more people involved in the work that we are doing there with all of that? For my role personally, when I came on, this is year 5 for me in my role, we had about 130 or so businesses that were in our book of business. That has now grown to over 1,200 now. So we have really been out there and knocking on doors and talking to people. When you talk about what are we doing for green energy and things like that, we're really listening to our business partners. We're listening to the skill sets that our business partners want to see our students coming out with. So we're going to kind of go through some things here with everything, and then we'll have time for questions there. So the importance of CTE, we talked a little bit about this and what we do, and looking at the data points. How are we using the data of our students coming out of our programs to then shape the changes that we are making? So looking at things like graduation rates, looking at things like math proficiency, reading proficiency, science proficiency. How many students are going on to post-secondary education? And then how many credits do we have earned for them going into college? But then also looking at that work-based learning, trying to show students the importance of what they're learning in the classroom as they lead in, or how does it connect to the business or the careers that they want to get into there with that. We also work on the comprehensive needs assessment. So every 4 years, we have to work with our business partners in our school districts to see, are the needs being met of our partners? Are our students coming out with the skill sets that they want to see? And what do they view as our programs? Important part there is when we survey parents, we're still learning that the majority of student decisions are being made at the dinner table. They're talking with their parents about what their parents do, what their aunts and uncles do, what grandma and grandpa did, whoever, and those are the jobs that they are looking at. And this really becomes really important in our work because those students who are from underrepresented populations who may not be able to see some of those other careers, our work is to get them to be able to see what those other careers are and help to break that cycle of poverty along with that. Talk about being that liaison between the State Board of Education and the districts. Cassie and I meet once a month with all the other state directors. We are just 2 of 54 across the state. But we meet with the State Board of Education and talk about where our target's at. We have to give reports every year about where we're performing on all of those pieces. And then being that liaison, before I came on to my role, I'll let Cassie talk a little bit about her region. We didn't have a lot of connection with the business community. And this is vital to hear from our businesses on how our schools need to perform better with all of that. But I'll let Cassie talk a little bit about Valleys.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be invited today by my friends from the northern part of Kane County. So I have a similar role to Terry's, and I would serve the southern Kane County schools that include Batavia, Geneva, Caneland, East and West Aurora. And then in addition to those 5 districts, I serve 12 other districts that are in parts of DeKalb, Kane, and Kendall counties. So I have a wider geographic region. I go all the way out to like small schools, Earlville, Leland, Newark, go down to Yorkville, Plano. Also unique about Valleys is that we have 2 career centers in our region. So we have the Fox Valley Career Center that is located on Caneland High School's campus that serves students from Caneland, Batavia, and Geneva in 11th and 12th grade capstone career and tech ed experiences. And then we have a career center in Sandwich. It stands alone from Sandwich High School, Indian Valley Vocational Center, that serves the 10 communities out that way. And then any of you that are from Aurora probably know that West Aurora recently built a Wisner Center building, and that East Aurora has plans to do something similar in fall 2026.
And I'm excited to say that District 300, so Algonquin, Carpersville, Dundee, is going to look to open a career or a tech center for their students as well in the next couple of years. So we're really growing with a lot of this.
Madam Chair. I'm Cheryl Strathman. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. Your focus is students who are not college bound? Like,
Not at all. Our students, yeah, we'll get into some of that. Our students for our programs are both college going and non-college going students. And one of the examples I like to use is students who say they want to go to engineering. Students who are going in engineering take what we call Project Lead the Way courses or engineering courses in many of our districts, or they could be taking manufacturing classes and learning how to run a CNC machine. Because many of these engineers and these are getting jobs out of college back at these manufacturers. So they need to know how these machines work. So it's a connection between the college going and the non-college going students.
Okay.
Our job is really to present them with pathways on what their opportunities are across the area.
Okay, thank you.
And many of these pathway programs,
Closer to the mic, please.
many of these pathway programs result in dual credit with our partner community colleges. And so in my region, that partner is Wabansie, and in Terry's region, that partner is Elgin. So these are students that may be going to college right away, maybe going into a career, but they also have some college credits that they've earned in high school that could serve them well if a few years into the career, they decided to go back to college. So
Thank you.
All right, so this slide here may be a little surprising to a lot of folks. This kind of breaks up the type of education that is needed for students and the jobs that are available out there across the country. Even in the state and in the region, the numbers are very similar. So I say break it up in a third. A third need a college diploma or a high school diploma or less. A third need some community college or some training afterward, trade school, things like that. And then only a third need a bachelor's degree or higher. So when we talk about, and everyone's heard in the news about the whole student loan crisis that we have, sending students to college just to send them to college is not the answer. What are we doing to build them a career and show them what the education level is needed to get to the career that they want to have? You know, with only having 3% that need a doctorate, but we have doctoral programs at all of our colleges and universities, what are the jobs that we're filling with those? You know, I have, from my own experience, I have a college junior at home and I have a high school junior at home. And my daughter wants to do, is in college. She wants to do early childhood ed and become a teacher. She needed to go to college for that. My son, who's a junior in high school, wants to do diesel technician and diesel technology. And all you need is an associate's degree for that job. So really having these conversations with our students and with our families about the level of education that's required for the careers that students are looking to get into. Don't go to college without an idea about what you want to do with your career. So it's very important how we have these conversations with our families across the region and across the state on what we're looking to get into with those. So CTE students at work, there's some pictures here, and all the pictures in the slide presentation are all pictures of students that have been out at different locations across the county. The welding pictures up there are from, I believe, Wisner Center at West Aurora. The pictures on the bottom, those are some of the young men in the neon green shirts. There are some interns we had at Alta Heavy Equipment over in South Elgin last summer. And then two students there on the bottom right were interns at Elgin Sweeper. And they were actually, when you say the college versus the non-college, the two young people in the bottom right-hand corner, they were wanting to go to college for engineering. So they worked in the engineering department at Elgin Sweeper. They were working in the electrical engineering department. So getting them a chance to work through that and kind of build upon those experiences that they had in their high school classrooms and then show them how that's going to relate to what it is in the real world. So when we say we look at data and we want to use the data to drive what our decisions are, this is kind of giving you some data here. The light blue on the far left-hand side of each of those columns is the state CTE or the state average for proficiency and things like that. In this case, it's graduation rate on the far left-hand side. The graduation rate overall for the state of Illinois is about 80% for all students across the state. If you are a CTE concentrator, career tech ed, so they've taken classes, and like I said, it could be business, it could be engineering, it could be autos, it could be manufacturing. The average raises quite drastically. So now we're looking at 94 to 95% of students graduating across the state of Illinois. In our region here, for the orange and the blue for the county, we're actually above the state average in those areas. So our students are coming out better prepared to then, and this is going to be key when we talk about dollars and cents here in just a little bit, but you can see our students are outperforming students across the state of Illinois because they are involved in these programs. You talk many times about the key is getting students in the classrooms, keeping them in the classrooms. When they are involved in career and technical education programs, they are more likely to show up. They like being in school for those classes. Just as if a student would show up to be there for sports or clubs or activities or the band or anything else. When we get students engaged in the community, they're more likely to be there, and they're going to score higher proficiency in all areas across the board. So how do we continue to do that with the data that we're talking about? We talk about closing the achievement gap. We hear this term all the time. For African-American students in the state, about 80% graduate. If you are a CTE concentrator, meaning that you have taken 2 or more classes in a certain pathway, 2 or more automotive classes, 2 or more manufacturing classes, 2 or more engineering classes, that rate goes up to 95% graduation rate. For our Hispanic students, it goes from 85% to 95%. So how are we keeping those students in the classroom? How are we getting to them at a younger age to make sure they are in a program of study to where they are going to be successful with all of that? So other pictures here, some site visits there from Valleys and the top with some medical visits that they did. I don't know if you want any more you want to add to that.
It's just our regional students on Wabanzi's healthcare campus that sits in front of Rush Copley Hospital in Aurora. Wabanzi hosts our students 4 days, twice in November and twice in February. And medical assistant instructor, I think I don't know if she's taking their temperature on their elbows. I don't know. I wasn't there that day. And then in the other picture, they're in the sim lab. So someone's holding like a baby mannequin that they can program to cry or to have medical issues and then troubleshoot.
And I will say, we can't do this without partnerships. The bottom 2 pictures, the one on the left-hand side there, that was from our manufacturing month tours. So October is manufacturing month. For the northern part, for Northern Kane County, we had 550 students go out and visit 21 different companies across Kane County. So getting students out to let them see where the connection is between the high school programs and what they're going to see and what the requirements are at jobs to be in these manufacturers. Manufacturing, not only in the county, but in the state, is the biggest producer of GDP for the state of Illinois. So how do we show them the opportunities that are there? The right-hand picture is from an event that we partnered with students that went up to Johnsburg High School. We partner with an organization called Skills USA Illinois, and they handle a lot of career development pieces. And then with the AED Foundation, or Associated Equipment Distributors, they had diesel companies out there letting kids talk to the professionals, letting them talk to HR people about what it takes to get jobs in those areas. But more importantly, the kids had a lot of fun. They had 14 different pieces of equipment for the kids to operate while they were out there on site. So the kids had a ton of fun with that.
I want to go.
Lots of fun there with all that stuff. It was a great day. We had great weather. We had close to 600 students total for an event that we put together in about 2 months' time. So working really closely, and we can't do those types of things without our partners. Westside Tractor, who's the largest John Deere dealer in Illinois for construction equipment. They're the ones that brought all that equipment out to have, students get on there and see what this is like. But we had a number of other companies there as well to show students those opportunities. So trends within the county. We talk about wanting to get students those college credits. Students who earn college credits while they're in high school are more likely to continue on to college. So whether it's an associate's degree or it's a full bachelor's degree, they are more likely to persist and actually earn that degree or earn that certificate from the colleges. So in this case, post-secondary credits over this past year, up 35% from the year before. So we have 35% more students earning college credit in just my region alone. You can see the numbers for Cassie's. Work-based learning. This is students actually getting out and doing internships and doing work-based learning in the schools and working through programs. An increase there. New numbers just came out a week and a half or so ago. We're still waiting for the official numbers, but even my number there is up again another 1% over last year. So trying to continue to build that and get those students those opportunities. And then post-secondary placement. So these are students that have gone from our high school programs into a college program. So we've seen increases there, huge increases now with this over the last couple of years. We were down because of COVID with students not wanting to go on to colleges or universities. but we're seeing more and more growth with that in mind there. So we talk a little bit about the summer internship, as Nancy kind of alluded to there. 4 years ago now, Nancy and I got together with Alignment and Northern Kane and said, how are we going to partner together on these types of things? I also work a lot with Cassie on sharing things there, and we work on different pieces. For the southern part, when we started, we had 52 students out for paid internships. And we have to look at how we get that money. We get that money from donations from companies. We get that money through state grant dollars. We're not allowed to pay students directly out of grant dollars, but I can reimburse companies and I can reimburse groups like Nancy's for internship hosting. We don't want to hurt companies by lowering their production and lowering their bottom line. We want them to be great partners. So how do we use those dollars to get students in the door to show them these career opportunities? We've seen huge increases now, 52 3 years ago to almost 150 this past summer. And that was out of 9 career areas, 47 different companies. And we originally had 185 spots available. We only filled 146 of those. So getting the word out there to these families and talking with parents and students about these opportunities has allowed us to grow these opportunities across the area. So what does this mean overall? This is where we talk dollars and cents. You on the county board know how much we spend in county accounts and how for services, things like that. A high school dropout will miss out on almost $300,000 over the course of their lifetime. That's a combination of lost wages and social services that they will need because they're not high school graduates. So how do we work through that? Looking at just the Northern Kane region and the number of CTE concentrators who now graduate from many of our underrepresented demographic groups, how much money are we saving over the course of their lifetime? By being a high school graduate, we see $150 million over the course of their lifetime, or about $2.5 million per year in those regions. So how are we working together to get students that next step, making sure they're graduating high school? This doesn't take into account the different certifications that students earn while they are in our classrooms. For instance, the welding labs. We have a welding lab at Hampshire High School. We have a welding lab at Elgin High School. Cassie has a welding lab at West Aurora in the Wisner Center. Those students are earning certifications to earn them even higher wages. So this number really doesn't tell the full story. Students that are coming out of the automotive programs are able to go ahead and come out with ASE credentials. Anybody that's taken their car in, you see the nice blue gear sticker that's on the door and says they're ASE certified. Our students are earning those credentials coming out of the high school program. We just had a student last summer. We got him an internship. He was a senior. We had a spot available. He had already earned 10 entry-level ASE credentials coming out of high school. He did the 2-week summer internship and was hired on full-time in an entry-level position at one of our auto dealers. So this is not just closing that gap. This is extending it and knocking it out of the park with those types of things.
Can I ask a question? Can you go back to the 2.5 million per year? Can you explain that to me?
So when we look at the number of graduates, if I look at all the seniors that are coming out of programs, and as I said, we're using the average rates of graduation for all of our different demographic groups. And I look at our total number of students. And because students were involved in a career tech ed program, they are more likely to graduate. So how many more students graduated because they were involved in a career tech ed program versus those that did not graduate? We still have a large number
How
that.
did you come up with?
So the
2.5
average
million per
number
year?
right there, 292,000 is the average cost. So taking that number of graduates and multiplying it by that $292,000. So because we're graduating more
Oh,
students.
Okay, it's not per student. Thank you.
Correct, not per
I'm
student,
done.
absolutely not. It's
Okay.
overall.
I'm done.
And we have, in my region, we look at those numbers. I know Cassie looks at them as well. How many students did not go on to a 2-year school, a 4-year school, a trade school? What are we doing to promote those students to go on to those things and get these higher careers? So really pushing through all of that is important.
Good, thanks.
Opportunities for growth. Internship placements are the biggest thing. As I said before, and Nancy mentioned, we're paying for these pieces. out of grant dollars. We're paying for these pieces out of donations from companies. How do we get students to move into those and stay in those programs? How do they go from a program at our high school into a program at our community college? We see that students are doing that. They're involved in these programs. They're more likely to go on to the community college, finish a degree, or if they decide to go to work to start with, how do they then come back to get upskilled later on? They may get to a company and they're in a job right now and then realize that they need to go back to school to get those upskills. How do they move on to that next piece? Working with our community partners and our businesses on doing just that. We're always looking for ways to get increased funding. One of our partners right now is Elgin Community College. They got a grant through the Illinois Community College Board this past year called Taking Back the Trades. They were able to help supplement some of our costs with that internship program. So they've been a really good partner there with that. How do we continue to find ways out of our state grant dollars? Cassie and I work on committees all the time. Up until last year, we had not seen an increase in state level career tech ed funding in over 20 years. So 2 years ago, we saw about a $4.5 million increase statewide. This past year, we saw about a $10.3 million increase statewide. We are still behind our neighboring states in promoting and supporting career and technical education. As I said, we've heard from companies all the time. They hire an engineer out of college and a machine breaks down. And they say, well, great, you're an engineer, go fix the machine. And the engineer says, I've never touched a machine before in my life. They know the bookwork, but they've never touched the machinery. They've never worked through with their hands and getting their hands dirty on those types of things. So how are we promoting both the college going and the students who just say, hey, I just want to go to work, go out and do welding, go out and do a machine operator with that. Our programs are offering students these national certifications with all that in mind. The business tours we talked about, we had, like I said, 550 students go out to 21 different companies. I know Cassie had a number of students go out to hers, but getting students out there to see what the jobs are that are available, having those tough conversations with students as well. All right, you're not so great in math. We need to have a conversation about this because it's going to be really hard to get in engineering school if we're struggling with Algebra 2 right now. And having some real world conversations with them. You can go be a machine operator. You can go be an operator or an engineer in that company working on the machinery, but you're not going to go get a full-fledged 4-year degree in engineering if you don't have some of those skill sets. And if they still want to do that, how do we upskill those students at the high school level to get them to where they want to be and work through all of that? Tours of our schools. We are always more than happy to have folks come out and see what's going on in all of our buildings. Come out and see what's happening and talk to the students. We want to get companies out. Not that long ago, I had a company that came in and looked at our facilities at Hampshire High School. And they said, well, we thought you stopped teaching the trades in high school. We didn't realize you still taught these things. So we are teaching these pieces and showing them that we are teaching these pieces there with all of that. And then our networking, career fairs, senior job fairs, our advisory boards. We are always looking for industry professionals to come out and tell us what we need to do with our programs. These should not be the schools telling the businesses what they need to do. This should be the businesses telling the schools what we need to do to make sure we're promoting that workforce that they need. Let you talk about that one there.
Thanks, Terry. So I think all of you, one of the most practical ways you could be helpful to us in this work is to encourage all of those folks in your network that own companies, that are in leadership roles in employers, to start really thinking about the ways of supporting our high school students. We have very aggressive goals set by the State Board of Education for those work-based learning numbers. We have a new law that affects all of our high schools come July 1 that requires them to offer college and career pathway endorsements, which is an endorsement on a diploma saying a student's had a set of coursework and experiences that prepares them for the career. And we can't meet any of these goals without employer partners in our region, whether they be public sector employer partners or private sector employer partners. And so that is one of the most impactful ways you can help us, is to encourage all of those people that you know to start hosting students in work-based learning. Like that's the biggest ask. We all have plenty of partners that will come to a career fair and stand behind a table and hand out brochures. And I'm not minimizing that commitment, but it's not enough. We need employer partners that bring young people in for a minimum of 60 hours and give them professional-like experiences. And for those communities that are most marginalized and have the most barriers, those kids need it more. Like my kids will be fine. They have 2 professional parents and they have a whole network of aunts and uncles and neighbors. We have communities where kids don't have any of those examples, and the way to build that social capital is to invite them into your company and allow them to do 60 hours. So one of the things we hear frequently from companies that are starting to listening to these messages and are like, yeah, you know, that makes sense. Like I should do something like that is, oh, I can't. The US Department of Labor prohibits me. There's these 18 hazardous occupations and I couldn't possibly have a student in this environment. Or, oh, I can't. My insurance company would never let me have anyone under the age of 18. Because I want to tell you, high school students are not 18. Like there's a very small percentage of them that are 18 some point in their senior year. My son didn't turn 18 till the August after he graduated from high school. If a company limits participation in these opportunities to 18, you're reducing your pool of high school students that can participate probably down to 15%, 20%, certainly first semester. So this event, which is December 5th, which is held in partnership with Northern Kane, G-Camp, takes place at Valley Industrial Association's headquarters here in Geneva, just right down the road. It will have a representative from the US Department of Labor, the Illinois Department of Labor, a lawyer from Lavella Law, and 2 insurance industry representatives. One insurance industry representative that specializes in school district policies, how the school district's current policy provides some protections, and then one that specializes in manufacturing policies to help manufacturers understand that with the right safety precautions, all of this work can be done. If you could encourage as many people as you know, they don't need to be manufacturers. If they have any doubts about the legality, about the risk, about the benefit to their organization, please, this is one of the most impactful ways you can help us. And we're going to record this and we will have a recording on our YouTube channel. And I'll make sure Anita has that when it's available. And if once the recording's out, you can share that widely. I will also leave the Valley's office annual report for all of you. And then I did want to answer the question on green technologies. West Aurora did just submit a grant along with Indian Valley Vocational Center, which is in Sandwich, not part of Kane, to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for what they're calling their clean energy CTE pathways. So if the grant funding would be received, both organizations would embed EV electric vehicle training in their current automotive programs. And so we can give you an update when we hear from the DCEO if the West Aurora project was funded.
So I know Nancy could talk about this. You know, what have we learned in the last 5 years of running these programs? We have learned that if we educate companies and we educate our network on what we can and can't do, and not more importantly than that, what our students can and can't do, and how successful are they being right now in their classrooms, we can, you know, continue to build that and continue to grow those opportunities. Partnerships are critical. We cannot do this without strong partnerships. Nancy and I are on the phone probably 4 times a week at minimum. Cassie and I probably talk to each other a couple times a week. I'm on the phone with our business partners all the time. We're out at events. We're in the chambers. We're trying to build these partnerships up to really continue to build these opportunities. There is not one single organization that can do all of this. You have to have a team working on these pieces. And that means that there's funding that's needed to do that and grow those pieces and be able to build from there. The communities and the business partners must invest in these pieces. right? And we show partners all the time that, yeah, while you may not take an intern right away, or you may not want to take an intern, you don't see the value of taking that intern is more than likely, if they have a positive experience, is going to be your next employee in a year or 2 years, or 4 years when they're done with university, or even in 2 months when they've finished up that internship. So really building on all of those pieces there. We got all of our contacts information there, and we'll kind of take any questions from any of you.
Will we get this? Is this in the packet?
No, but you'll make sure I get that right, Nancy. No, we get, yeah. Okay. Cheryl,
This,
in your
thank you.
microphone, please.
Thank you. This was amazing. Such good information. I have one question. When ECC came and made a presentation to us that they were building a manufacturing building, one of the statistics that impressed me, they said that when there's training, the local kids, 80% tend to stay in the local area, which of course improves our economy. Do you have any statistics about how many of your students stay in our local areas?
I do not have that off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that. I know a good majority of them do. What we have seen, we're just starting to collect that information from our internship program on how many of those students are staying here with companies to do that. But we can definitely look into some of that information there.
I would just be curious because it's, this is such an amazing program. It's very impressive. So thank you for being here.
I do know, because we both also have Ed Pathways programs in our school that encourage young people to become educators, because as you likely know, there's a huge demand for teachers in our state. And I do think they say that something like 80% of teachers stay within like 30 to 40 miles of where they went to high school. So I think maybe, I don't know, that's the only statistics I've ever heard.
Seeing it in conversations too, there are less students that are immediately going to university. If you look at U46's system now, less than 30% are directly going from high school to the university, which tells me they're not leaving the area. Some of our biggest challenges, the students are going out of state to university.
Right.
And unless Chicago and downtown and all the fun bars brings them back, we are losing those students. So this has been a significant issue for quite some time about how much brain drain Illinois is getting because we don't do a great job of funding post-secondary education. So we do have to work on that. And Cassie mentioned, we're doing a lot of work with ECC and the teacher pipeline and NIU, where they never even leave Elgin. They finish their whole baccalaureate degree with NIU, with instructors coming to Elgin. And those last 3 graduating classes, those almost 90% of those teachers are staying in District 300, 301, or U46. So some of these models are working very well. Wow.
What I would share as the work-based learning specialist is that so often when we talk to students, even young people that you say, what are you thinking about doing after graduation? And many times like, well, I don't know, or I'm not really sure. And that's where we've kind of done our youth an injustice. And it's not that they can't change their mind, but we need to lay a better foundation where students are invested in their own interests and their own passion and start thinking about a pathway for their future. Not that it can't change. So a misperception that's out there is that many times students go to high school, and then after high school, the natural progression would either go to community college or college. Many people end up going to college, and nothing wrong with getting a 4-year degree. I have my doctorate. But if you get a degree like as a philosophy major, I don't know of too many companies in Kane County that are posting positions for that. And so we need to do a better job with educating young people so that they're making good choices. And nothing wrong with becoming a philosophy major if that's your passion. But you have to think of how you're going to survive and live. So these pathways that enable these students, they're making connections through these work-based learning opportunities and these internships with mentors. with apprenticeships. Chris, before the meeting, was sharing about his own father and about how his own father, I believe, is in his 70s and still working. And he's working and he would like to retire, but there's no one to replace him. And that's where we need to build these apprenticeship programs, these pre-apprenticeship programs. You connect these youth with these great mentors, and they both learn from each other. And then they keep their roots in our community. They keep their roots in our county, and they're not going to other states. They're staying here and they're building their families and their future. And that's what we want. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all four of you for coming so much.
Yeah.
It went a little longer, but it was well, I think, worth the
Oh my
time.
gosh.
Very exciting.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
David.
So
Wait, are you a central parent, right?
I am Central 301. I've actually talked to Todd. It was about, I won't get into it, but it wasn't a very good conversation, but it was fine. You were fine. It was the situation at hand. I won't even get into it, but so how do you get employers involved? Like what I sell like components used for factory automation. Duquesne is one of companies I sell to. So how could I go to the director of Duquesne and talk to him about this, which I want to, because I think a company like Duquesne, for example, that is doing, it's in doing ultrasonic welding stuff and for all different types of industries from food and beverage and automotive, they would, I think, benefit from a program like this where you could have them recruit high school students, let's say out of St. Charles East, right, to do an internship with their company. How would I make that connection?
So you can just give them my contact information or Todd's contact information, Cassie's contact information.
Okay.
We're more than willing to go out and sit down and talk with them. I know Duquesne is also a sponsor of VIA and GCamp.
Oh, are they?
With,
Okay.
with that. So the biggest hurdle that we continue to face is, well, we can't take them unless they're 18. That's why we're having the event that we're having on the 5th to kind of still continue to educate. We're not asking you to take a student in and turn them loose on a job. We're asking you to take a student in and give them a mentor and work with the mentor hand in hand to show them what the career is like. And that's where some people kind of get confused. Like, well, we can't take them. They can't do this job. We're not asking them to do the job. We're asking them to learn about the job and work hand in hand with those employees and as a good mentor, right, to show them the opportunity. So give them our contact information. We're more than happy to meet with those companies and anybody and talk about those opportunities that they may have.
Okay.
So we typically begin that process by us going and visiting the company and learning about the company and what makes them unique, what makes them best in class, what they're most proud of, what their needs are. So it's not like we go hand in hand, hey, please take an intern. We want to make sure it's a good fit for everyone involved. And that begins with us really listening to business and industry and what their needs are and what their employment needs are. And then dovetailing that, having them then come and see our programs. And once they see the programs and they see the certifications, many times they're very much surprised about what these students can actually do and the certifications that they have. And then from there, it's like, hey, let's start small with a pilot program. And then from there, it grows. And what happens is when you have a major manufacturer like Hoffer Plastics taking interns, other companies notice that and they're like, oh, well, if they could take interns, we'd like to have some interns too. So it grows by word of mouth and having good experiences. And so that's vital too. So Cassie, Terry, myself, if you have our interns, you have our cell phone numbers. You can contact us at any time because we're your partner every step of the way in that process because we need it to be successful because that's how it grows.
And specific to Duquesne, they are a VIA member and a GCamp sponsor, and they host tours of high school students and they participate in a lot of other ways, but they haven't taken that next step. And maybe your encouragement could help them take that next step. Because a lot of times with these barriers, what the real barrier ends up being is company policy. company policy is what the real barrier is. It's the only barrier. And the only people that can change company policy is the leaders of the company.
That's true. All right, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So last question, because we got some business we have to do. We could go on with you guys like for 8 hours. So
Quick question. Have you brainstormed about a workaround with that policy
Which policy?
of 18 years old?
Oh, yeah. We've brainstormed around it. We've dug under it. We've gone over it. It's really a matter of talking to those business leaders. And they have to be comfortable with taking someone on. And not only does the company have to be comfortable with taking someone on, we want to make sure that they have a good mentor to mentor those students. We
that's
don't
true.
want to scare students away from those industries. We want to have them have a great mentor to encourage them to continue down that path. So it's not something that happens overnight. We've had business contacts that we've talked to for years now that they are finally now starting to come on board. So it's a multi-step process and all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for having us here this morning. We appreciate your time. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us.
thank you so much.
It's great.
Totally appreciate it. Thanks, guys. All right. Let's see. Let's let Scott Berger go next.
Good morning, committee.
Good morning,
we-
Scott.
We do not have any business items before you today, but we do have an accounts payable financial report in your packet beginning on page 9, and be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Any questions on Scott's stuff? Were you able to listen to the presentation they gave?
I was listening to it, and if I could just make a remark, I would appreciate a little extra time to do that.
Yes.
So at different times, various members of the board have inquired with me about where to send somebody that might be looking for career guidance, possible assistance, educational assistance, vocational training assistance. And those of you who have done that will recall that I frequently give you the name of our one-stop manager, our one-stop employment center located in downtown Batavia. The program that you heard about today is one of the large array of programs that we make referrals to. So the reason I typically suggest that you send inquiries to the One Stop is because the people that work in the One Stop are very well qualified to help matchmake inquiries with the various programs that you hear about from time to time. Perkins is just one of the many programs funded by the federal government, I believe through the U.S. Department of Education, actually. And we try to connect people with the appropriate services and assistance based on their interests, based on their needs. And so that's the reason that I frequently refer and recommend that people contact the One Stop, because navigating the array of federally funded employment assistance programs can be daunting. And the people at the One Stop they're the reason that they're there. The reason that we have a One Stop is to provide that navigation assistance to get people connected to the most appropriate services and programs that would benefit them. So I just wanted to provide kind of that background remark to basically demonstrate that the program you heard about today is just one of many, many programs that are available to job seekers at various ages. This one happens to be suited for young people. And connecting them through the One Stop is oftentimes a very effective way to get them kind of fast tracked to the right program. So just wanted to add that remark to your presentation.
Yeah. Thank you. It does take a village sometimes, doesn't it?
Well, there's just an alphabet soup of federally funded programs. And
Yes.
frankly, I don't know very many people that could possibly, put together a comprehensive understanding of what they are and who manages them and how they work and who they serve, et cetera. So.
Thank you very much, Scott, for sharing.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any questions for you. So thank you very much and have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Jobs Committee priorities. How are you going to follow all that?
With the fabulous Fox Water Trail, National Water Trail. I will comment, when Chris and I started working with the Jobs Committee about 10 years ago, that was one of the high need things that were identified by manufacturers. People were talking to was really upping the game on work on high school pathways into these careers. And what's been accomplished in the last 10 years by these groups is just nothing short of amazing. So this was really fantastic to see. So we have some updates for you, and then requested action on a resolution that's been referred to you by the ARPA committee. So first of all, we're going to talk about the Fairless Fox National Water Trail and give you some updates. The reason we're talking about this back in 2023, really, a crown jewel accomplishment to have the Fairless Fox Water Trail designated as a national water trail, and really gives it national and even international prominence. And why is Kane County focusing on this designation? One is because we are in the sweet spot of economic development opportunities for businesses, for tourism, for everything that has to do just because of our proximity, as well as the existing cities, towns, downtowns, trail systems, all the other amenities that go with a national water trail. So some of the things that have been happening, just kind of summarize, the American Rescue Plan funding was phenomenal for this project. The county board just approved the contract for the improvements to 5 new launch sites. We also had several grants from the DCEO for the tourism aspect of it, recognizing the economic development potential. So 270,000 of that we added to the American Rescue Plan funds, and we'll be starting the construction of the 5 new launch sites in 2025. When the bids came in, there was no funding left for the SUFA sign, so that's why this resolution for the contract is at this committee to look at using our other funding. And then also concurrently in this past year, we used $100,000 grant for marketing and branding. So fortunately, there's a new opportunity, because this is going to be an ongoing effort for the Fairless Fox National Water Trail. A new round of the tourism attraction grants, 100% local match, application due December 20. We'd like to go ahead and apply for a grant using the Economic Development Fund 400 for the match again. So now specifically on the SUFA signs, I want to cover just real briefly sort of the purpose, proximity, partners, and participation. Give some alliteration to it. So purpose, again, besides the economic development aspect that I just touched on, it's an opportunity to provide safety information on current conditions on water levels, or what might be expected water levels, weather, those kind of things. Marketing, obviously, economic development, and then mainly for awareness, we want to both connect visitors with amenities as well as connect residents with the river. A lot of people locally don't know. We'll have 5 new and enhanced launch sites.
We have a river.
Don't know about the National Water Trail designation.
Sorry.
They know we have a river. But once these 5 new launch sites are completed, they won't know that they're now, fully accessible for persons with disabilities, which is another big part of that project. So there's sort of a wide variety of awareness involved in it. So proximity, there were some questions on that in the previous committee meeting, so I want to cover this a little bit. So we're picking locations for these signs in particular that connect visitors with amenities and residents with the river. They're going to be non-intrusive to the river. Locations can be adjusted to maximize availability. These are bolted down. They can be picked up and moved somewhere else. They also include technology that doesn't tell specifics for cell phone information, but it can tell when a cell phone is within a certain distance of it. So there's a way to have data to compare, how many people were in proximity to the sign. And if it doesn't seem like it was a great spot, move it somewhere else and compare the data on that. And this is a photo. Well, I do want to credit a couple of things on some of the maps and working with getting some of this prepared. Catherine McKenna here, our planner newer earlier this year, has been contributing to making this happen as well. So a couple other maps that she prepared for proximity. Again, we want to connect people. And this is a site. I'll cover a little bit about how we got to these, but this is a proposed site. The St. Charles Park District has requested they would like to have one of these signs. This is where they would like to have it. You can see the walking distances just within a half miles, all of downtown St. Charles. It's also right by the two important amenities for access to the river, a boat launch and restrooms. So back in May, we wanted to gauge the interest from the communities on having these signs before we went ahead and went out for bids and had a contract for the sign. So we had a partners meeting. Many locations were recommended. This is a map that sort of summarizes the stickers that people put. 4 communities have come here to see the sign that's downstairs if you haven't seen it yet. And they're very interested in having one or more of the signs in their location. So the red dots are those communities who would definitely want one, and the yellow dots were locations that we would continue to work with the community to finalize the location and their interest. So participation, currently, I mean, the plan, we're using the ARPA funds that we were going to do up to 12 signs. It was going to be a total project of $312,000. The county was going to do 100% of that with the ARPA funds. That's not available. So now we're pivoting and looking to use Fund 400 economic development funds for this. So we're looking at this point to a couple of modifications to the resolution. One would be to ask you to amend it and have staff change the language. So instead of ARPA funds, it would read Fund 400. The other amendment would be to we'd look to have a contract that would be up to 12 signs, so that we're not obligated to lease 12 signs under the contract, but we can do up to 12 signs as we confirm our community partnership. So just as an example, if we did less signs, say we ended up doing 6 signs and paying for all of them, it would be half of that cost. We have a couple of other options that we'd like to discuss with community partners, when that would be to have them a cost share in it. So again, we could do up to 12 signs. We could pay 50%. If we were successful in getting the DCO grant I just mentioned, we could ask our community partners to do 25% and have the state pay 25%. If we weren't to get the state grant, then we could still, look at doing a 50-50 with us and the partner per sign, and the lease period that under the contract would be for 3 years. So I can go back to the slide if you want, but what we're looking for this morning, we'd like to have the Jobs Committee approve the resolution today and send that on to the December exec and county board meetings. And then also direct us to revise the resolution to reflect the non-ARPA funding and to change it to up to 12 signs. We'd go ahead and apply for the DCO Tourism Attraction Grant, talk about participation options with the community partners, and then we could report on those, back to the Jobs Committee. But I think at this point, in order to take advantage of the good pricing we have from SUFA through the RFP, if we went ahead with the contract, it doesn't stipulate, how they're going to be paid for. We can continue to work with them. And I think we'll have a better conversation with our partners, knowing that the county has, a contract up to 12 signs. So with that, any questions?
Okay, can you go back to the options?
Yes.
We can talk about it. So, I'll start and then you guys join in, please. My favorite obviously is option A. I like the fact that the communities are going to have to put in 25%. That makes sense because they're going to benefit, just as much as us, so that's my favorite option, obviously. And that's assuming we're going to get the grant too. And we can always adjust that if we do not get that grant. Go ahead. Mr.
David
Young.
Young, is that option A on the resolution? Is that, well,
No, we haven't put an option on the resolution yet,
oh, we haven't.
because we have to talk about it.
Oh.
And we don't need to put an option on the resolution because basically what the resolution is authorizing Madam Chairman to sign a contract with SUFA for leasing up to 12 signs at that amount. How we pay for the lease, whether it's 100% out of Fund 400 or we, have those other funding sources to pay for it. That's something we can continue to work out, once we have the contract in place to do up to those number of signs.
So the total would be 312,000?
Only if we did all 12 signs
Oh,
and the cost
so
to the cost to the
open-ended.
county would only be, up to the amount, which of the options we negotiate with our community partners.
So as we get the signs, so we're gonna have the contract, so does the contract say up to 12 signs? So we'll start with whoever wants them first, or how's that gonna work exactly?
Yes, that's the intent of
Okay.
asking you to amend the resolution for using Fund 400 and up to 12 signs so that we're not obligated to all 12 signs.
Yeah, I think that's quite reasonable.
Madam Chair, Gary Doherty has his hand up.
Oh, Gary,
Hey, thank you. Couple of questions. I noticed in the pictures that a lot of these signs have advertising on them. Are we going to have advertising on our signs, or, that would be a nice additional revenue source to help pay for them.
Certainly, that's a good question. The graphics that you see on the sign are for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail that we developed under the DCO grant for marketing. There is a LED black and white panel that can have 4 different panels on there. It's not going to be advertising per se that we'd be getting revenue from, but it would be our community partner could have like their feed from their website of local events that are happening, like for the St. Charles Park District, they could have their calendar of events coming up, those kind of things. And then on the back side, I know it's smaller in the upper right-hand corner where under the word explore, where it looks blanker, our community partners could put a fixed map like of their downtown district or something else that's specific to their community. But it would not be advertising per se, and we wouldn't be getting revenues from the signs.
Did we make
We
that-
would not get that revenue. Did you say we would or we would not?
There would be no revenue, direct revenue generated from the signs.
No,
So
no,
there's
so
no commercial advertising.
is that by choice?
That is by choice. It's also by recommendation by the sign company. And I know from other things, we've had discussions with the state's attorney's office on some of the other marketing things that we produced for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail that they do not want us to be taking in revenue.
yeah, so the way I kind of see this going, like if Aurora were to go into partnership with us, then the city of Aurora could put on this thing that here's what's going on in Aurora this week. So they could say, by the way, here it is Sunday, the Green Fest is going on at this park, so that when people get there, they could go off, do things there. And then obviously restaurants too. And that's why I think it's important that these communities have a little skin in the game too, because then they're going to want to put more stuff on it.
Right. Again, you're saying
The city of Aurora does not do advertising for the Green Fest.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay.
Gary's got one other question, so let's let him finish.
restaurants are going to be advertising on our sign. I'm a little confused. Why can't we just charge them a fee?
Well, in a sense, we would be with the cost share. They'd be cost sharing for leasing the signs.
I thought we were just talking about communities. So you're saying that businesses would be helping pay for the signs?
The communities would be, not any individual businesses.
Okay. And what would be the cost to purchase a sign?
They do not sell the signs. They do these under a lease. So there's a one-time setup call, then an annual maintenance. So this contract would pay for the initial setup and delivery and installation, and then there's an annual maintenance cost. So after the 3-year period of the lease, then the county would revisit, how we have the arrangement for continuing the maintenance costs with the communities.
Madam Chair, comment. I think it would be a good idea not to have advertising on it because companies and restaurants and businesses come and go. And also if you have the option to move these, as we were talking about pinging with the phones, then you would screw up what you have on the advertising. So I think
It's all
it's
software though. It's
It-
all software screens, right?
It is, the one side has the
Software screen, I
screen and
mean, it's programmable.
programmable, but which can change.
right. Okay.
But the current proposal does not include any specific business advertising or revenue generation from that. It's the only marketing and advertising is specifically for the Feathers Fox National Water Trail and local community events and their business districts.
I have to leave in 4 minutes, by the way.
Gonna vote real quick then.
Will these, you know how much I like these, 0. But, and I'm sure you're going, oh, damn, Mavis is on this committee
4
too.
minutes, come on.
Okay. You meet me coming and going. But, will these, I'm glad there won't be advertising. How close to the river will these signs be?
Well, it'll depend on the community partner and where they would like to locate it. In this case, you can see, it's maybe 1/8 of a mile from the river.
So it won't be closer than, but it's up to the communities for where they are placed?
Correct. They'll be suggesting the location where it'll be placed.
So you can go up and down the Fox and talk to them.
Okay. Will these be lit up at night? Is this light pollution in the middle of a nice dark?
No,
place.
the screen is LED and then there's and you can see downstairs exactly.
I've seen it.
There's a very low level LED that gives just enough to kind of light the face of it, but it won't be light pollution.
Okay, well, so if there's no more questions, since we have 4 minutes till I lose my quorum, let's take a vote.
Do we have a motion? I
Bates
will make a
moves.
motion.
Bates moves, Young seconds.
I'll second.
Okay.
I can't believe I moved. I'm taking one for the team here, you guys. Yes,
Bates,
yes.
Doherty,
Well, I'm sorry, but we're just writing a blank check. We're not going to pick which option.
So what we did is in order to get the, to get it to moved on, we are going to pass forward the resolution. And then when they determine if they get the grant that they're applying for, then we'll decide whether it's going to be, option where the cities pay 25% or how that works, but we're going to wait till we actually get this grant. So right now it will be coming from our fund 400 under our development.
The full 300 then. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand what I'm voting on. If I say yes, am I stuck with the decision to get this no matter how much money we get grant wise? Or is this yes, go ahead and investigate?
No, it's a yes. We already have the money in our development fund 400, but we're going to try for this other grant, which will take less out of our 400.
Come back to me. Let me think a minute.
Okay.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Young,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Allen,
Back to Gary.
All right. Yes. Reluctant, yes.
All right, thank you. And Mark will come back after this is said and done and let us know, hopefully, that we did get this other grant and exactly, what's going to happen. So this is going to continue to come back to us.
All right. Well, at a bare minimum, let's make sure that the towns that requested it are paying something, just kicking something in, because I mean, yes, it helps King County, but it really helps a Dundee to have a sign like this advertise the whole downtown area of Dundee or whatever.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. So, but Mark will come back and give us further updates on this. We'll
Yes,
hold
we-
his feet to the fire.
We heard the strong direction from the committee that you want a cost share. So we'll go back to those communities. We'll let them know that we're going to be applying for the grant, but either way, there's going to be a cost share of either 25 or 50% for the signs, and we'll bring what their responses are back.
Right, perfect. Thank you. All right, moving right along.
Just one update, and I'm going to toss it over to John Grueling. I passed out a major business development project report that he recently updated, and just let him speak to that.
Yeah, this is a report you saw in an earlier meeting. And I just updated it. I put some additional information on some of the projects. It's a substantial list of activity. One of the things we'll be doing at year's end is putting a dollar value, adding job numbers, and then looking at maybe some forecast information for what 2025 looks like. The only significant thing that I've noticed over the last 6 or 7 months is speculative industrial building has basically stopped. There are no new projects that are being built just on spec. There's some that are under consideration that may go forward, and that's not unique. That's pretty much throughout the metro area. There's still capacity in the existing building inventory. And until some of that gets leased up, there's not going to be very much spec, new spec construction. But the existing business expansion and new business location numbers are substantial. And I think Kane County has a lot to look forward to in terms of more of this type of activity. And it's across the board. It's manufacturing, it's transportation logistics, it's technology companies, it's food, a lot of food companies. As you know, we continue to be a major center for food activity. So it's a very, very good report. So.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I always think it's
fun.
interesting to see who's coming in. Yeah.
Keeps me up at night.
What else?
That's everything.
That's everything? Oh. It's not even noon yet.
Almost.
All right. Thank you all for everything, and have a good weekend. We cannot put the reports on file because we don't have a quorum, and we can't adjourn the meeting either.
We'll stay here until.
Yeah, so I'll just leave. So thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. You look good, Leslie.
Oh,